Hi, I'm April of the Sewing Box Quilt Shop in Myersdale, Pennsylvania. And today we're going to be making an Easter basket. This is a free pattern on our website, sewingboxquiltshop.com. Under the tab Resources, look for the page Free Patterns and then Easter Basket. Go ahead and print that out and follow along as we make one today. We also have kits available on our website featuring the fabrics. In this one, I'm going to be using scraps at home, and this takes 3 fat quarters and some Bosal or bag foam. The pattern calls for us to cut our inner and outer pieces of the bag to 16 by 21 inches. I'm going to layer them together and cut them at the same time. That way they're the exact same size. I cut one straight edge, I turn it, and I give myself another straight edge by using a line on the ruler, not the mat, for that first cut and the second cut. I turn it one more time, and then I need my 21. So I'm going to use my ruler to mark out 21. Take your time. You want a parallel line here and a parallel there at the 21. Cut off the end. Scoot it forward, keeping your 21 lined up. And this is how you cut when the fabric and the cut of fabric is larger than the ruler you have. You'll notice that my fabric is cattywampus on my cutting board. I do not care about if it is square on my cutting board. I'm squaring it and cutting it to the ruler. This also prevents you from getting deep gouges in your cutting mat because you're cutting on the same line again and again and again if you're measuring it. So that was my 21. Now I need a 16 inch. I do have a 16-inch ruler, so I'm going to use that. It makes it easier. You get a much longer cut. On Creative Grids, you have white numbers that are your whole numbers and black numbers that are your half. Since I need 16, I'm a whole size, so I can turn it to that white. And I'm going to use that 16 line along my edge. Again, I'm cattywampus on my cutting mat. Bring it down, get your last little bit of your cut. Okay, there's my 2 pieces, 16 by 21. To base the outside of your panel, you are going to put your outer fabric on top of your foam. You're going to use 505 basting spray. And you're going to need an iron. You fold your outer fabric in half on itself, revealing the foam, and you give that a coat of 505. You then spread your fabric out nice and smooth. And then when you peel from this direction, you'll see you hit resistance as soon as you hit that basted area. So you just leave that like that, and you baste the other half. Spread it up first with your hands and then set it with the iron. Or cross hatching to be a quick and effective way to cover the whole bag or basket. And I simply take on darker fabric a chalk, and I use my ruler and just line it up with the chalk. It's still hard to see, this is a dark fabric, and do a 2-inch line. And repeat that over the surface of the panel. Okay, we are going to quilt this. I have an HP walking foot on, which is a Janome high performance walking foot. I'm going to give me a nice large top stitch length of 3.2, and I'm just going to quilt down my rows, not worrying about the strings and the edges and the starts and the stops, because that's all going to get trimmed off. Now we are going to fold it in half and use a couple of clips to hold it along the long folded side. We are going to use a ruler to mark a 3-inch box corner. And this can be a Sharpie. It's on the back side of the foam. You will be stitching over it. You will not see it. It will be completely covered in with your lining. Take some sturdy scissors and cut that out. And then we are going to head back to the sewing machine and stitch this side and this side, and then box the corners. We are going to reduce our stitch length to 1.8 so it's nice and tight, or even 1.5 if this is going to be a kid's Easter basket. You are going to give yourself a very healthy 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Remove your clips and then box your corners. And that means to take it and fold it like this and then stitch along that edge. I do not clip this, I just sew underneath, making sure to make sure you get it all really good, and you can always come in and trim up later. To stitch your lining fabric up so it's ready to go into your basket. First, you're going to take it and fold it in half so that the two short sides are coming together and now become the long side here. And you have two, what I'm now going to be calling the short sides. This is the top of your basket, and the fold is the inside of the lining. You're going to place one clip in the middle up here, just so you remember that is the top. We're going to do the same as we did with the other one, where we're going to box the corners, and that is 3 inches out of each corner. And you can do this with scissors, or because it's just the lining, it's a little bit easier to cut and control, you can also just do it with a small rotary cutter at this point, however you prefer. We are going to now head back over to our sewing machine and stitch one of these sides completely shut and one of these sides here and here, leaving an area in the middle open for turning. Some people like to mark that with a X so they know not to sew that area. Once the two sides are sewn, we're going to box the corners and sew them shut. You're going to box your corners by folding them. Now time to make the handle. We are going to cut a 6-inch strip of fabric from our accent fabric. And we are going to take that to the sewing machine and sew along the long edge right sides together. Get your iron heating back up while you turn this right sides out. Yes, you can use a turning tool, but it's a fairly large tube and it's not very long, so you can do it by hand pretty quickly here. Then I like to roll him a little bit in half, fold him in half, roll him however you can, and then you just feed him down through because he's pretty stiff. He goes in pretty easily. Sorry. And then you go as far as he goes on his own and then come up from the other end and pull him down. Okay, we want to situate the seam so that it is on one side of the foam, not on the edge of the foam. And then we are going to set the whole thing with the iron and then top stitch it however we would like. The more top stitching you do, the stiffer the handle will be. We're going to go back to a larger stitch length since it is a top stitch. A 3's fine here. And then I'm going to just use the edge of my foot and come in. It is now time for us to assemble our basket. Like me, you probably flipped it right side out as soon as you finished stitching to get an idea of what it's going to look like. We now need to make sure it is flipped wrong side out, and that is going to be our bottom layer. Okay, make sure you pop your corners out nice and good. You are then going to take your handle that you have top stitched and you have trimmed to 16 inches. And you are going to put it, the top of the handle, down in first, so that as you look at it, you are looking at the bottom of the handle. And you want 1 inch of the handle on each side to be sticking out. At this point, just a simple clip to hold it in place. Now take your liner, and you want to make sure it is right side facing your bag, your basket. Now, because your handle's in there, your liner is not going to fit perfectly at this time. That's okay. You just need to focus on lining up your seams from the lining and the outer and clipping it in place. With a nice tight stitch, go down to 1.5. We are going to stitch this all together. I like to start just in front of one handle. And you want to give yourself a healthy seam allowance, about a 1/2 inch down in. Time to turn it right side out. The easiest way to do this is to kind of fold the foam into a bit of a tube, if you will, and then you're going to work that through your opening that you left in your seam allowance on the side. You're basically going to pull the lining out and finger fold it in. And you can, if you want, do a invisible ladder stitch by hand. But I am just going to top stitch this shut real quick and be done with it. Tuck that in, and now we are going to just top stitch the entire outer edge of the bag. And this has to be done slowly. Move your stitch length back up and just take your time working around the handle. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you had fun making our Easter baskets. Remember, this free pattern is available on sewingboxquiltshop.com under resources, free patterns, and then Easter basket. We also have kits available too. Just search Easter basket on our website, sewingboxquiltshop.com.